Councillor Rodrigues.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the delegation. Thank you for coming forward. I have essentially 3 questions. One of them you mentioned about the notification, a second notification. Was that established when it would occur? Is there enough time, do you believe?
Well, time is getting short. At this point, you've got about 6 weeks. It was very loose conversation, but bottom line, 2 more placements, one in February and one in early March, were discussed, but not particularly specified. But that was left to the discretion of Durham staff. So they will decide. The only thing we said, not only in Metroland, it should also go in other independent media, and it clearly makes sense if that would include the Oshawa Express and the Orono Times in Clarington, because those are the 2 municipalities that would be most directly impacted.
And that's what I want to lead to as part of that question is, in terms of effectiveness, is there enough effectiveness in what's being proposed as a second notification in terms even of size of ad? Because once again, if people don't know, so has the EFW Advisory Committee specified a methodology to be more efficient rather than just saying we have a second notification? If that in effect occurs but does not have substance to it, is there any way of measuring the effectiveness, please?
Okay, what I raised at the committee, you have to, as I just said, this is a committee made up of municipal staff from Durham and York, 9 members from York lower tier municipalities, a couple from York Region, 8 members from lower tier Durham municipalities, and a whole bunch of Durham project team staff. So that's the majority of the membership. 1 from Cloca, 3 public members. I definitely had to urge the committee to come forward with some ideas. I said, listen, you people do consultation all the time. I mean, you work for municipalities. These are senior people that sit on this committee. So in the end, it was a York member who suggested the additional ads. And I also brought to their attention the Clarington Council motion. That motion, it's making its way through the process. It should hit the works agenda next meeting, which I guess is next week. And that motion from Clarington asks for 2 things. It asks for a deadline extension to the comment deadline, and it asks for a public information meeting to be held. Not one of those dumb open houses, you know, with storyboards, but a real public information meeting where information is presented to the public, opportunity for questions and answers. Carrie Madam and I both made delegations to Works Committee January 30th, where we referenced the Clarington motion, because even though it hadn't hit the agenda, we were aware of it. And at that meeting, Chair Anderson basically said, you know, if Clarington wants to hold their own PIC, they can do it and pay for it themselves. So personally, I'm not terribly optimistic anything is going to come from Works, which is why I asked you, when this comes forward, to please pull it. Because, you know, quite frankly, aside from it being the right thing to do, you owe Clarington people something. All of you who supported this incinerator, you won't even talk to them now about how you're going to communicate operational issues? I mean, this is a sad joke. So that opportunity exists, and that does not preclude a deadline extension.
Thank you very much for expressing your thoughts on the effectiveness. My second question deals with the ministry. Are they aware of the proceedings of the advisory committee? Do they receive minutes, and are they open to other comments as well?
They receive minutes. They have a meeting observer. Do you want my opinion on what they do with this? They get copies of minutes. Whether or not somebody reviews them, I have no idea. They send a meeting observer what he reports to the Ministry of Environment people involved with EA condition of compliance. I don't know. But my personal opinion is this is really not high on the ministry's list of things to worry about. And the other thing I did mention yesterday, you know, MOE is into issues management. If this becomes an issue, they'll deal with it. But if it doesn't, they'll be happy to ignore it the way, you know, any level of any other types of government, you know, ministries do when it comes to something they don't want to deal with. This is not high on their list. So if anyone's waiting for MOE to come in and save the day, I don't think it's happening.
So you don't get any feedback at all from the ministry as to, let's say, the voting that you raised earlier, the methodology, the rules surrounding that?
I have to insist that the project team provide documents. When they do plan amendments or whatever, they're supposed to tell us what drives that, you know? Don't just give us a plan that you amended without telling us what caused that. So occasionally, we will get some documentation from the ministry that may explain their response to something. But right now, the ministry process is they supposedly had consultation with staff at some point. There's some meeting dates referenced. And right now, the plan is in draft. This plan needs only to be submitted to the director at MOE prior to the receipt of waste, which we learned yesterday will be March 2014, just in time for all your campaigns. And at that point, they'll make a decision whether they deem this plan acceptable or not.
And thank you very much. And my third and final question, through you, Mr. Chair, regards the meetings themselves. They're open to the public, I understand, are they? Oh,
they finally are now, because the first meeting, staff ordered it shut to the public, and we made such a stink that they were open to the public.
Okay.
After that.
Now, I don't suppose these meetings are video recorded, or are there any prohibitions about doing such, and would that be feasible to be able to enlighten people who, for any number of reasons, might not be able to attend and to, in fact, make them more effective as public meetings?
Oh, I personally think that every meeting at the region would be more effective if it were taped and video streamed. People tend to behave better before an audience.
So my question more specifically then would be, if there's no prohibition, would that be feasibly possible, and would that be a good way to go forth by any individual wanting to record it, unobtrusively, of course, to the meeting? Would that be acceptable
Absolutely.
to the EFW AC?
A number of us have encouraged web streaming of all committee meetings, and this committee, more than anything, begs for an audience. Especially because most meetings are at 2 in the afternoon. Really tough for the public to attend.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, but there's no prohibition about any member of the public wanting to go in there with a video camera on a tripod, unobtrusively, maybe wide angle, and recording it and then making it available to the rest of the public.
I don't know what the regional rules on this would be, but I can't imagine there would be a prohibition. Actually, somebody was joking yesterday that regional staff or others were possibly watching this the way they watch other committee meetings. I don't know. I really don't know the region's rules about prohibitions, but people take videos with cell phones all the time. That's maybe not practical for a 2.5-hour meeting. But really, it should be, all these meetings should be web streamed by the region. Absolutely. Standing committees, advisory committees, because what goes on there uses public resources, and those decisions affect the public. The public should be completely aware, and it would be excellent if the media would attend from time to time, because you got to see it to believe it.
Thank you very much for coming forward. Thank you for your information. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? None.